Hi, hello, welcome to South First. I have with me Mr. Buggana Rajendranath Reddy, the Finance Minister of Andhra Pradesh, and a very key member of Mr. Jagannath Reddy's cabinet in Andhra. Sir, thank you so much for talking to us, sir.
Yes.
So it's been like almost 3 years that YSR Congress Party has come to power in Andhra Pradesh. So where is Andhra heading? So what do you see? What lies ahead for Andhra?
3 years has been challenging times. 2019 onwards, the first year of our government, we had to rectify and correct and take care of various deeds of misgovernance of the previous regime of 2014 to 19. Well, you might say every government blames the previous government, but then here there is a special case. The reason being 2014 onwards was a difficult period in Andhra's history for the reason that it was post reorganization of the state. So post reorganization of the state, we actually moved from a state of lot of industry and a sizable service sector in the form of IT primarily, to an agrarian state. So it was incumbent on that government at that period of time to take extra care to address these issues, which was not done. The TDP government under Mr. Chandrababu Naidu from 2014 to 19 took the state into a path without a direction, a path without a goal, and if there is a goal, an impossible goal. So 2019 onwards, we were left with a whole lot of payables, unimaginable, and then a whole lot of issues for the reason that everything was just started and left midway, and a whole lot of issues that were started 6 months or 1 year or 1.5 years prior to 2019 general election. 2020 onwards, the next 2 years was difficult period. That was difficult for the whole world, and along with the whole world us, because of COVID. So the first 3 years was tumultuous and a big challenge, where we had a huge mandate and a responsibility to take care of the poor, the downtrodden, and the youth who aspired for their future, and government employees who wanted to be taken better care of, and every issue under the sun which normally needs special attention was there, with a whole lot of baggage. 3 years has been challenging.
But actually, opposition parties, especially Telugu Desam party, had been making a lot of hue and cry that Andhra Pradesh is really broke and it is on the verge of bankruptcy, and there is no direction. I mean, you have been saying that for the between 2014 and 2019 it was directionless, but what they have been saying is, from 2019 onwards it's a chaos, and there is nothing happening in the state other than borrowing and funding the welfare schemes or welfare measures of the YSR Congress Party, the party that had promised all these welfare schemes and all. So how do you respond or react to that?
See, there are figures which cannot be disputed, because these are all figures that are audited by the CAG. So what do the figures say? One, it is not possible for anybody to borrow how much ever they want to. There is an FRBM which restricts, and there are certain rules within which you actually can do any borrowing. Secondly, if we look at the borrowings, if we look at 2-3 indicators. One, the CAGR of the borrowings between 2014 to 19 and 2019 onwards, if you look, there is a 5% difference. There is a 5% difference between the debt to GSDP between the TDP regime and our government. Our government is 5% lesser. Let us look at it another way. When you look at the government of India, the union borrowings versus the state borrowings, the state borrowings between 2014 to 19 was far higher than the union borrowings, if you look at the same percentage of debt to GSDP. Whereas, in these 3 years, if you look, we are more or less at par with the union's borrowing. So, 2014 to 19, there was no crisis, there was no COVID. If at all there was a difficulty, the difficulty was because of the reorganization of the state, which required special attention to bring back the state into a position which was prior to reorganization, that is more of service, more of industry, etc. Now, you look at the debt to GSDP, you look at the rate at which borrowings were made, or you look at the limitations to borrowing, everything suggests that, the figures suggest that the TDP regime borrowed far more than what we borrowed. And on the other hand, we are borrowing at a rate or pace at which is permissible, not beyond the permissions. So, it is completely, utterly false and wrong and utter lies for them to say that we have borrowed more than them. Projecting the state as going into a debt trap, comparing it with certain countries that are in difficulty is purely political. The TDP is doing this because they do not have any other reason to blame the government that is performing to the expectations of the public, the poor, the downtrodden, and the assurances made by our Honorable Chief Minister prior to the election, as also the manifesto that we have released before the election, on which the mandate was given.
Sir, when it comes boils down to the borrowings and all, but the main grouse or the blame that your government is facing is these borrowings and every penny that has been raised from the market or whatever other sources and all, they are being funding or being used only for welfare measures for political gains, and somewhere around state government has missed the balance between welfare and development. So how do you respond to that?
Just yesterday, our Honorable Chief Minister presented to the Assembly the factual position of the finances. It shows that the average of expenditure, capital expenditure made 2019 to 2022 is far better than the average of the capital expenditure made by the government between 2014 to 19. If approximately, if it is 15,000 crores per annum capital expenditure made during 2014 to 19, it is 18,000 crores capital expenditure made by our government between 2019 to 22. Number two, the capital expenditure made, where did we make our capital expenditure? We made a major portion of our capital expenditure on focused areas of education and healthcare. Do they have a particular focus on any particular area? Nobody knows where the focus was, nobody can understand what direction they traveled in, nobody can understand which area exactly they invested money in or spent money in, and yet they made more debt than we did. The rate at which they made debt was more than what we did, and there is absolutely no particular one single achievement that they can claim, yes, we did this. Other than propaganda and advertisement, it is surprising for us, because now everybody says that we are spending on welfare. Yes, we are committed to welfare. We proudly say that we are a welfare state, but we are doing welfare in a very transparent manner. What are the programs that we are doing welfare on? One, education of the child. Number two, health. Number three, the old aged, taking care of the old aged. Number four, Arogyasri, again health. Then empowering the women, giving them more opportunities to have a better livelihood and better earning. These are our focused areas, where one particular area that the erstwhile government can say, yes, this is what we achieved.
But actually, there is also a general sense that there is no focus of YSR Congress Party government towards bringing in new investments or new industry to generate revenue or create employment and all. How do you look at it?
That is again a lie. If you look at the average investment that came in into the large and MSME, we did about 13,000 crores while they did about 11,000 crores. Again, we are 2,000 crores more than them. With all the publicity that they did, with all the CAA meets that they did, there is also a discussion going around saying that there were people in Vizag during those days who used to actually rent out suits for so many delegates who are coming into Vizag to attend Mr. Chandrababu Naidu's CIA meets. So the people who rented out suits actually made money during Mr. Chandrababu Naidu's CIA meets. This is what.
Sir, it's also been that 1,000 days that Amravati farmers had completed their agitation, and now they are on another Mahapadayatra towards Arasavali into the north. They are going into the North Andhra. So how do you look at it, sir? The Amravati agitation by Amravati farmers and the Mahapadayatra that they have been conducting of late.
So here, what is exactly the reason for the agitation? I don't understand the reason for the agitation. Yes, it was thought to have a capital in that area, but for various reasons, the government thought that decentralization is better for the state. Now, it is basically about a few thousand people who have their lands given for a purpose by the in the form of land pooling, where they are getting back property which is, or value of property which is far higher than what they have given. Now, if this is the case, then what about all the people who have given up their lands for various projects? What about people who have given their lands for Polavaram? What about people who have given their lands for Nagarjuna Sagar? What about people who have given their lands for Srisalam project? What about people who have given their lands for Tungabhadra? What about people who have given their lands for the steel plant? They have also contributed. So it is not that something is being taken away. This remains to be a particular point of administration along with two other. What are the other two? The other two are Vizag and Kurnool. So it is not that something is being taken away from here. So now Chandrababu Naidu wanted to have 9 cities in that area. What are the 9 cities? The administrative seat, the judicial seat, health, tourism, education, entertainment. So what is there left for the rest of the state? What our government is doing is, we are basically decentralizing by having activity in other part too. We are not taking away anything from here. I don't know what this fuss is about. If this fuss is about you feeling that, a few thousand people feeling that your land value was far higher or expected to be far higher, and it is not going to the expectation, therefore you feel bad. If it is about few thousand farmers with a few thousand acres, what about the lakhs of people, crores of people in the state with crores of acres? It has to be justified. This is politically motivated, nothing.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for talking to Southwest.
We are the new generation leader.